everyone. Today we are going to be reading a story. It is called Kittens by Dean Koontz. Monty is waiting patiently for the family cat, Pinky, to have a new litter of kittens. She had 4 last year, but the trouble was they just disappeared a few days after they were born. Monty's dad told her it had been the will of God and that the kittens were now in heaven. But he wouldn't explain what happened to them. Since then, her mum has given birth to twins, and the babies are thriving. Surely this year the same thing won't happen to the kittens. So when Pinky safely gives birth to 6 kittens out in the barn, Monty vows to keep an eye on them every minute of the day. She hides out behind a pile of straw, and when the tragedy looks likely to be repeated, Monty gets a very scary idea indeed for revenge. The cool green water slips along the stream bed, bubbling around smooth brown stones, reflecting the melancholy willows that lined the bank. Monty sat on the grass, tossing stones into a deep pool, watching ripples spread in the ever-winding circles and lap the muddy banks. She was thinking about the kittens. This year's kittens, not last year's. A year ago, her parents had told her that the kittens had gone to heaven. Pinky's litter had disappeared the 3rd day after their squealing birth. Monty's father had said God took them away to heaven to live with them. She didn't exactly doubt her father. After all, he was a very religious man. He taught Sunday school every week and was an officer or something in the church, whose duty it was to count collection money and mark it down in a little red book. He always picked to give the sermon on Layman's Sunday, and every evening he read passages to them from the Bible. She had been late for the reading last night and had been spanked. Spare the rod and spoil the child, her father always said. No, she didn't actually doubt her father, for if anyone would know about kittens and God, it was he. But she continued to wonder, why, when there were hundreds upon thousands of kittens in the world, did God have to take all 4 of hers? Was God selfish? This was the first time she had thought of those kittens for some time. In the past 12 months, much had happened to make her forget. There was her first year in school, the furor of getting ready for the first day, the buying of paper, pencils, and books. And the first few weeks had been interesting, meeting Mr. Alphabet and Mr. Numbers. When the school had begun to bore her, Christmas rushed in on polished runners and glistening ice. The shopping, the green and yellow and red and blue lights, the Santa Claus in the corner who staggered when he walked, and the candlelit church on Christmas Eve when she had to go to the bathroom and her father made her wait until service was over. When things began to lose momentum again in March, her mother gave birth to twins. Monty had been surprised how small they were and how slowly they seemed to grow in the following weeks. Here it was June again. The twins were 3 months old, finally beginning to grow a great deal heavier. School was out and Christmas was an eternity away. Everything was getting dull. Therefore she heard her father telling her mother that Pinky was going to have another litter. She gasped at the news and wrenched every drop of excitement from it. She busied herself in the kitchen, preparing rags and cotton for the birth, and a fancy box for the kittens home when they arrived. As events ran their natural course, Pinky slunk away and had the kittens during the night in a dark corner of the barn. There was no need for sterilized rags or cotton, but the box came in handy. There were 6 in this letter. She liked the kittens, and she was worried about them. What if God was watching again, like last year? What are you doing, Marnie? She didn't have to look. She knew who was behind her. She turned away out of deference and saw her father glaring down from her. Dark, irregular splotches of perspiration discolored the underarms of his faded blue work coveralls. Dirt smeared on his chin and caked the beard on his left cheek. Throwing stones, she answered quietly. At the fish? Oh, no, sir, just throwing stones. Do we remember who was the victim of stone throwing? He smiled, a patronizing smile. St. Stephen, she answered. Very good. The smile faded. Supper's ready. She sat ramrod stiff in the old maroon easy chair, looking attentive as her father read to them from the ancient family Bible that was bound in black leather, all scuffed with several torn pages. Her mother sat next to her father in the dark blue corduroy couch, hands folded in her lap. Isn't it wonderful what God has given a smile painted upon her plain but pretty face? Suffer, the little children, come to me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. Her father closed the book with a gentle slap, and seemed to leap into the stale air and hang there, holding up a thick curtain of silence. No one spoke for several minutes. Then, what chapter of what book did we just read, Marine? St. Mark, chapter 10, she said dutifully. Fine, he said, turning to his wife, whose smile had changed to a We've done what a Christian family should do expression. Mary, how about coffee for us and a glass of milk for Marnie? Right, said her mother, getting up and pacing into the kitchen. Her father sat there, examining the inside covers of the holy book, running his fingers across the cracks in the yellow paper, scrutinizingly the ghostly stains embedded forever on the title page, where some great uncle had accidentally spilled wine 1,000,000,000,000 years ago. Father, she said tentatively. He looked up from the book, not smiling, not frowning. What about the kittens? What about them? He countered. Will God take them again this year? The half-smile that had crept onto his face evaporated into the thick air of the living room. Perhaps, was all he said. He can't, she sobbed. Are you saying what God can and cannot do, young lady? No, sir. God can do anything. Yes, sir. She fidgeted in her chair, pushing herself deeper into its rough, worn folds. But why would he want my kittens again? Why always mine? I've had quite enough of this, Marnie. Now be quiet. But why mine? She persisted. He stood, suddenly crossed to the chair, and slapped her delicate face. A thin trickle of blood slipped from the corner of her mouth. She wiped it away with the palm of her hand. You must not doubt God's motives, her father insisted. You are far too young to doubt. The saliva glistened on his lips. He grabbed her by the arm and brought her to her feet. Now you get up those stairs and into bed. She didn't argue. On the way to the staircase, she wiped away the reforming stream of blood. She walked slowly up the stairs, swallowing her hand to run along the smooth, polished wood railing. Here's the milk, she heard her mother saying below. We won't be needing it, her father answered curtly. In her room she lay in the semi-darkness that came when the orange full moon shone through the windows, its orange-yellow light glinting from a row of religious plaques that lined the one wall. In her parents' room, her mother was cooing the twins, changing their diapers. God's little angels, she heard her mother say. Her father was tinkling them. She could hear the angels chuckling, a deep gurgle that rippled from down in their fat throats. Neither her father nor her mother came to say good night. She was being punished. Marnie was sitting in the barn, petting one of the gray kittens, postponing an errand her mother had sent her on 10 minutes earlier. The rich smell of dry, golden hay filled the air, straw covered the floor, and crackled underfoot. In the far end of the building there were cows lowing to each other. Only 2 of them, whose legs had been sliced by barbed wire, and who were being made to convalesce. The kitten mewed and pawed at the air below her chin. Where's Marnie? Her father boomed from somewhere in the yard, between the house and the barn. She was about to answer when she heard her mother call from the house. I sent her to Brown's for a recipe of Helen's. She'll be gone another 20 minutes. That's plenty of time, her father answered. The crunch of his heavy shoes on the cinder path echoed in a military rhythm. Marnie knew something was wrong. Something was happening, and she was not supposed to see. Quickly she put the kitten back in the red and golden box, and sprawled behind a pile of straw to watch. Her father entered, drew a bucket of water from the wall tap, and placed it in front of the kittens. Pinky hissed and arched her back. The man picked her up and shut her in an empty oat bin from which her anguished squeals boomed in a ridiculously loud echo that belonged on the African veld, and not on an American farm. Marnie almost laughed, but remembered her father and suppressed the levity. He turned to the box of kittens. Carefully he lifted one by the scruff of the neck, petted it twice, and thrust its head under the water in the bucket. There was violent thrashing from within the bucket, and sparkling droplets of water sprayed into the air. Her father grimaced and shoved the entire body under the smothering pool. In time, the thrashing ceased. Marnie found that her fingers were digging into the concrete floor, hurting her. Why? Why? Her father lifted the limp body from the bucket. Something pink and bloody hung from the animal's mouth. She couldn't tell whether it was the tongue or whether the precious thing had spewed its entrails into the water in a last attempt to escape the heavy, horrible death of suffocation. Soon 6 kittens were dead. Soon 6 silent furballs were dropped into a burlap sack. The top was twisted shut. He let Pinky out of the bin. The shivering cat followed him out of the barn, mewing softly, hissing when he turned to look at her. Marnie lay very still for a long time, thinking of nothing but the execution, and trying desperately to understand. Had God sent her father? Was it God who told him to kill the kittens? To take them away from her? If it was, she didn't see how she could ever again stand before that golden white altar, accepting communion. She stood and walked toward the house, blood dripping from her fingers. Blood and cement. Did you get the recipe? Asked her mother as Marnie slammed the kitchen door. Miss Brown couldn't find it. She'll send it over tomorrow. She lied so well that she surprised herself. Did God take my kittens? She blurted suddenly. Her mother looked confused. Yes, was all that she could say. I'll get even with God. He can't do that. He can't. She ran out of the kitchen toward the staircase. Her mother watched but didn't try to stop her. Molly Cowfield walked slowly up the stairs, letting her hands run along the smooth, polished wood. At noon, when Walter Caulfield came in from the field, he heard a loud clash and the tinkling of china and the shattering of glass. He rushed into the living room to see his wife lying at the foot of the stairs. A novelty table was overturned, statuettes broken and cracked. Mary, Mary, are you hurt? He bent quickly to her side. She looked up at him out of eyes that were far away and in distant mists. Walt, my good God, Walt, our precious angels, the bathtub, our precious angels. That was morbid. Yeah. Happy Halloween. I will see you all next Monday.